Hello everyone, my name is Rafael and welcome to my vlog. So on today's vlog I would like to talk about the gear, and even though I don't talk much about those kind of stuff and I don't do any reviews, it's not my forte, today will be a little bit different. But I would like to talk a little bit about the future cameras. So it seems like there's a lot of discussion nowadays about the new cameras and what they can offer and what they can do for us, but I haven't seen too many photographers expressing their opinion or sharing their, I would say, expertise on what those new cameras should have and what kind of technologies they should have implemented into them to make our life easier. So I've decided to actually sit down and kind of make a list of things which would definitely help me as a headshot photographer, and create some kind of like list of things which would definitely improve my photography. And there's a list which I think some of those stuff are doable, some of those stuff I think they're kind of like started showing up in some of those new systems, but there's still, I think, a long way to go to make this happen. And I know those things, they need time, and those companies definitely need a little bit of, I would say, work to make this happen, and it's not easy process, as we all know. So let's jump into this list, and I would definitely like to hear your opinion on this, and if there is anything else you would like to add, I would definitely love to hear from you. And basically let's have the discussion open, and maybe one day someone from those big companies will see that video and maybe they will take this to their heart, what I have said, and maybe some of those things will be implemented into the new cameras of the future. So the first thing what I would like to talk about it and what I would like to see into those cameras is definitely Wi-Fi and internet connection. That would definitely help us to speed up a process a little bit. And also, I don't shoot tethered, so having the ability to basically download those images right away straight from the camera and see them on the computer would be just a huge advantage. I would love that, and I think that would be amazing. I know that Nikon Z7 and Z6, they have this Wi-Fi connection. I tried to do that a little bit when I was testing the Z7, but it's still, I would say, a long way to go, especially the files are so big. It's not easy process and it takes time. So it's not, it's still, I would say, at the beginning of developing this technology. But I think if we can reach the time when you can automatically download, through wireless system your images to the computer, that would be amazing. So the next thing I would like to see in this future cameras would be definitely, I would say, some permanent storage, some kind of hard drive put into the cameras. I know this might sound crazy, we have all those SD cards and stuff like that, but I was thinking if I would have, about 2 terabytes of hard drive, put it into my camera, I don't have to really worry about my SD card or using the SD card as a kind of backup, and have that into my camera. That would be extremely convenient. I don't think that would be big of a deal nowadays. And as you can probably see, you can have amazing storage, memory storage on our phones and stuff. So I don't think that should be a problem for the camera. But I think that would definitely end this entire, I would say, discussion about 2 card slots and all these problems. That would be definitely something which would be really cool to have in my camera. So the next thing I would love to see, and I don't know if this is even possible, I know we're going that direction, to have basically some kind of wireless transmitter which I could control over my speed lights. I wouldn't have to have any, I would say, additional accessories to work with my speed lights, and it would be so cool if I could control my speed lights straight from the camera. I think this is something would be very beneficial. If I would see that in the kind of new cameras, that would be like huge bonus for me, and I would definitely I would say consider to purchase something like this, because I think that would be extremely convenient and easy, and would definitely help me speed up the process of creating images. So the next thing is kind of obvious, and I know some of those cameras nowadays, they have that option, which is the weather sealed, but there's one thing which I would like to kind of see in the future cameras. So whenever we take off our lens, our sensor is exposed, and I have some issues in the past where, you know, the sensor got dirty and I had to clean it, and then it was always frightening because I was worried that I'm gonna damage something. But I was thinking if the new cameras could have some kind of nano coat on the sensor which doesn't collect the dust. And I've seen the video a while ago where I don't know what they've done, and they changed some molecules on the product, so whenever someone put, for example, shoes in the dirt, the dirt pretty much just was coming off. And I think that would be super cool to have that kind of thing on my sensor, and I wouldn't have to worry ever again about cleaning my sensor. So that would be super neat. So the next thing, what I think would be super cool to have the camera, which would be shock proof. I didn't have a chance to damage my camera by dropping it, but I know there is a lot of issues with that, and whenever that happened, it's just the kind of end of the world whenever the camera shattered on the pavement or something like this. And I know that happens to many photographers, and I don't know if this is even possible, or this is something what is, you know, even the manufacturer is able to do. But at the same time, I think if we are able to send, you know, shuttle to the Mars, you know, we can definitely create a camera which could have some kind of shock-proof body, which would definitely help us to kind of, you know, have this camera which is, you know, solid like a tank, and, you know, nothing would happen to it. I remember, and this is just kind of a little bit off topic, I used to own alien chrome lights, and they were made out of metal, and I'm not gonna tell you how many times this thing dropped, how many times, you know, these lights have external damage to them, and they were still working. And the funny part is that these lights were nowadays they would be about 30-40 years old, but again, they're made out of metal, they're really solid. And I even remember a situation where my home got flooded and one of the lights actually went underwater, and I thought this whole thing is toasted. But believe it or not, I dried it off, and after basically a few tests, this light was working back again. So that's something which I was really impressed, and if I could have camera like this, that would be super cool, and I would just be, I wouldn't even mind paying a little bit extra dollars for something like this, because I would know that I can be, I would say, less careful, and I know this camera is very well protected. So the next thing, which I think, you know, it's happening, but it's also, again, slow process. I would love to see the cameras which basically they don't have any buttons and dials. I know that recently Canon come up with this kind of like little touch bar, whatever, but it didn't work well. But I think eventually if we could have just a kind of really simplistic camera and everything would be kind of controlled out of the touch screen, that would be super neat. I had some issues with the buttons on my cameras, and the camera had to be sent to the repair to fixing them. I know especially there are certain buttons which we use them quite often. They're getting very easily, I don't know, I don't want to say damaged, but you know, they're getting used too much and they stopped working and all this stuff. So I'm guessing something like this would be very beneficial. So another thing I think is going to be a little bit controversial, but I'm not a really big fan of the cameras which are very small and they are very light and all this stuff. I prefer cameras which are a little bit heavier. They solid, and you can kind of like feel them that you holding them. And I know the entire industry is going completely opposite direction. Everything is smaller, it's much more compact. I'm not sure why you know, this whole thing is going that direction, but I prefer to definitely have the cameras which are bolt solid, and then you can feel it when you're working with them. It's a tool, and again, I would definitely do like to see the cameras which, you know, they feel in your hands like a camera. It's not feels like a toy where you're just holding it and you have a hard time to even work with this, but that's just in my opinion. I know everyone is different and everyone has a different expectation. I know those companies also would like to make the cameras where people can travel with. They can basically put in the pocket. They not big, they don't cause any additional, I would say, problems with using it. But for me as a headshot photographer, I like to kind of feel the camera in my hands, because that's where the magic happens. And again, it's a tool, and it's something which in my opinion should be bolt much more solid. So now we're gonna go to a little bit more technical stuff, and some of those things they're already implemented into those cameras, but I would like to see some progress with that. So the first thing is definitely, as a headshot photographer, I would like to have a camera which has like a very precise eye detector, where I know I'm not gonna have any issues with shooting and I'm missing the shot. Especially with the headshots, you know, those things are extremely important. And the thing is that we move, the clients move, and sometimes whenever you're shooting very low, shallow depth of field, it might be a little bit of a problem. Plus, when you're shooting, let's say 200 millimeter, that's also it's an issue. I know the new Sony cameras, they're extremely good when it comes to the eye detection. I never work on the Sony cameras, so I really don't want to kind of share my opinion on that, but that would be something which would be very, I would say, beneficial. I would definitely love to have a camera which has that system in place and which is very precise. That would be another huge bonus. Even though I don't miss shots as much, but having that kind of like in your mind that, you know, your camera is doing that work for you, that would be really cool. Nowadays, you know, I don't miss the shot because I really pay attention to it. I really want to make sure that every time before I take a shot, I have to kind of refocus or double check it and then make sure I'm properly focused. But if the camera could do that for me, that would be pretty much amazing thing, and would definitely help me with my photography. So another thing what I would love to see, and I know the new format cameras, they have that ability to shoot raw, where basically whenever you actually blow out the highlights or you overexpose the image, you can bring that back, and then you're not gonna basically lose any details. That would be super cool, and I know that wouldn't be much of a problem for the camera, and I know that manufacturer could create that kind of like sensor which could collect all that data and make sure that, you know, we never gonna, I would say, destroy the image, and there's always possibility to bring the image to the proper exposure. Unfortunately nowadays with the digital camera, if you overblown highlights or you overexpose the image is toast. But maybe in the future we will be able to basically save any image. Who knows, that would be kind of cool to have that kind of ability, especially with the raw files. There's so much information goes in that maybe one day that will be impossible. So that's what I would like to see one day, even though again I don't blow up the highlights and I don't overexpose my images. But especially for the people who are starting off and they're not really experienced with exposure, that would be definitely something would help them to create images and don't worry about it, that if something goes wrong, they're pretty much toast. So let's jump to the last thing, and this is one of the things which actually becoming a problem nowadays. So I would like to talk about the file size. and basically editing them. So I don't know if this is even possible or not, but I would definitely like to see some kind of files which go hand with the computers, because nowadays if you have a, let's say, medium format, most of the computers, they're not even able to handle those type of files. And even with my Z7, which I had for, I would say, few days to shoot, and they were a little bit larger than the average files, my computer had a really hard time to handle. And even though my computer is fairly new, it's about 2 years old, the computer was basically just pretty much, it was losing his mind over the files, and you can see it was struggling to basically process them. And that was frustrating for me, because you know, it seems like those two things, they don't go hand to hand. I would love to definitely see this kind of like those things just kind of are built accordingly, and then whenever you get this, let's say, new cameras, the files are not kind of as difficult to edit, because again, shooting is one thing, but editing is another thing, and we again might lost a lot of time whenever our computers are struggling with processing those files. So what I would like to say, it's not maybe they should invent new type of files, but I would definitely like to see some type of files which you can pretty much, let's say, wirelessly send out to your computer, and you can very easy process them, and you don't need to have these high-end computers which are extremely important to handle those files. That would be maybe is a dream wish, but those are the kind of things I would definitely like to see in the future cameras. So I hope that was interesting. I hope maybe that gives you a little bit of new perspective on some of those things. I definitely would like to hear your opinion, and would love to hear if there's anything else you would like to add. I would like to have this conversation going. Thank you again for watching. Stay tuned, and I'll chat with you guys very soon. Bye bye.